According to risk analysts, businesses could be in for another turbulent year as the United States and other world powers compete for dominance in a new era of geopolitical upheaval. The year 2022 was very significant in terms of some major events defining the course of the future. Events like the greatest armed conflict in Europe since World War II, corporate challenges in Russia, the public demonstrations of friction between United States and China have led to a disturbing geopolitical situation. Businesses that have become familiar with unrestricted international trade now face growing challenges like export limits and the growth of penalties. According to Lindsay Newman, head of geopolitical thought leadership at S&P Global Market Intelligence, governments are increasingly leveraging financial levers to achieve their objectives in terms of national security. Formerly, geopolitics was only discussed at dinner or cocktail parties, but the clients are now approaching agencies and requesting a geopolitical risk management function. It is obvious that the Cold War era has ended, and major powers are now vying for control of the future. However, risk experts have now become more cautious. According to a survey of more than 1,200 risk experts, policymakers, and business leaders, geo-economic conflict is one of the top 3 risks that people perceive over the next 2 years. The cost of living, natural disasters, and extreme weather were the only near-term dangers assessed as being greater. Another poll conducted by consulting firm Protiviti Inc. of more than 1,300 executives revealed a sharp increase in the previous year in risk specialists' worries about geopolitical developments, international commerce, and a potential reshaping of globalization. The top 3 worries for survey respondents were labor prices, economic conditions, and talent issues. However, the geopolitical threat showed some of the biggest increases from what respondents reported the year before. One example of the challenges facing the globalization initiative is McDonald's departure from Russia after more than 3 decades, with its signature arches being carried away by cranes. According to data from Yale School of Management, more than 1,000 businesses, from consumer brands to law firms, left the country or reduced their operations as a result of the invasion last year. By June, companies' losses from their activities in Russia totaled more than $59 billion. Assets worth tens of billions of dollars have been frozen as a result of US, UK, and foreign sanctions. Meanwhile, tensions between China and the United States have flared up noticeably. For instance, China has consistently denied American accusations that its treatment of the Uyghur minority community in Xinjiang constitutes genocide. As a result, US regulations have multiplied in response to the tensions, making business with China more challenging. The growth of China's semiconductor industry has been the subject of US restrictions, which also support domestic chip manufacture. The majority of imports from China's Xinjiang province, a significant supplier of cotton and other products like solar panel parts, are prohibited from entering the United States under the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. As a consequence, many businesses are concerned about how to handle the difficult US-China relationship. Many businesses were already aware of the dangers of over-dependence on China, thanks to COVID-19 and the supply chain disruptions it caused. While many companies don't necessarily need to re-evaluate their usage of Chinese suppliers, they should consider whether they suffer compliance concerns as a result of new laws aimed at China, and perhaps make plans for broader geopolitical effects in the future. Some observers of China worry that if the government adopts recommendations to examine overseas investments for national security issues, another significant export of American capital to China could be hampered. The Committee on Foreign Investment in the US has increased staff and indicated a tougher stance. Additionally, the Biden administration recently gave CFIUS instructions to scrutinize deals even more closely if they could provide China or other rivals access to vital technologies or jeopardize supply lines. In November, Gina Raimondo, the Secretary of Commerce, stated that the United States is not looking to break ties with China. Despite some corporations moving their operations out of China to nations like Vietnam and India, Sridhar Tayur, A supply chain management specialist and professor at Carnegie Mellon University's Business School stated that American companies are still deeply ingrained in the country. It is believed that a lot of raw materials and components, along with finished items, ultimately come from China, and any attempt by corporations to move their supply chains outside of the nation will take years. Despite current conflicts, international cooperation may ultimately succeed if nations work to address common problems like climate change and the transition away from fossil fuels.